Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be looking and doing a deep dive on vector databases and how they can link really well through to ChatGPT so that we can solve some real life problems, looking at a lot of information and getting some good answers out the end. For this, we'll have a look at the processor space and all the companies involved in it. We're going to look at their earnings calls transcripts. Now, these transcripts are available for free, public domain on the internet. So what you can do is just analyze these transcripts and then see what answers you find. So I'm going to upload different information from NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, even Google, Amazon, Microsoft, really all the big players in this space. And using that information, we're going to ask it a series of questions. Now we're using this tool called ChatBoffin. It has a vector database linked to it, and then it also links up to ChatGPT so that we can fire the information through to it. It also has groups of questions so that it can just go in order and ask each of these questions to the vector data store and then pass the information through to ChatGPT. So you'll see in the background that it's actually running now and it's coming up with the answers. So for example, the first question was list all the processors by company. So as you can see, it's done a good job of that. It's now going on to look at comments on inference because this seems to be quite an important topic that the CEOs are all addressing. So I thought it was interesting to get more information about that. You can find out problems that all these companies are having. There you are. And then it's also can talk about the opportunities that the companies identify for themselves. And as you'll see, this system has gone away and produced these great answers. So you'll notice that we're using version 3.5 ChatGPT. And this is better than 4 sometimes, counterintuitively, because it's quicker, as well as it's cheaper. But, as you might expect, it's not as powerful. But for our initial answers, I like to use ChatGPT 3.5 because it can provide some good targeted information before we, upgrade and ask the questions to version 4, which costs more. So if we have a look at some of the answers here, we can see that we're discussing inference and the processors by company. You can see that Intel is talking about a surge of interest in the inference category, as well as everybody's talking about it. So it's obviously important, and fittingly, they're all coming out with processors that can handle inference. And if you don't know what inference is, it's just the way that they term it for serving the AI models rather than training them. So if you're using ChatGPT, on the internet, then it's inferencing, right? And therefore, you need processors to handle that, to show you, their answers. So what I've found is it's important that you play with this data and ask it different questions. I think that's when you get the most out of it. For example, finding certain words and topics that the CEOs are focusing on, and then asking more questions around that and see what the other companies are doing for the same thing. What we can also do is pass these questions using ChatGPT 4, and hopefully, because it's a more powerful model, it will be able to give us some better answers. So you can see the back end of ChatBoffin here, where you have different information coming from the vector databases. Now this is the raw information that we're seeing on screen, and this is the information that's passed to ChatGPT, so that ChatGPT can then do its magic and provide the final answer. But I think there's great value in just the vector part of the solution, the vector database, because your company might have a lot of really interesting proprietary information that it's stored in this vector database technology. Can allow you to interrogate that information in ways that you were never able to before, and you're able to pull out different information depending on the meaning of that information, and then also identify, where the information is located. So it could be used as some sort of enhanced search service, for people who are maybe not as plugged in to all of your documents. For example, new staff, they'd be able to come in and really identify different places where they can find information. So it's really useful. Now, if we have a look at the groups again, what we can do is we can actually change the number of chunks it returns. And we'll run all these series of questions now with ChatGPT-4 selected. So all we have to do is just click on this button, and you'll see in the background that it's going away to the vector database and then passing all that information through to ChatGPT-4. Now, these questions take longer. There's, a lot of information hanging on each request because we are passing, all the information from the vector database. So it's now returned a sort of more detailed answer than what ChatGPT 3.5 did above the page. As you can see, it's got more information. It's identified additional processors that ChatGPT 3.5 didn't. Now, this could also be due to the number of chunks that we're passing through to version 4. But as you can see, it's an improved answer, but slower. So it's obviously something that you would want to use in the final examination, as it were, because it provides better answers than 3.5. It's also giving some great answers to the inference question. I think there's more detail there. So overall, it's a great improvement of what version 3.5 was able to provide. Now, all this information has been passed through the OpenAI API. So that's the application programmer's interface. And this allows, developers to hook onto the services of OpenAI. But this system could be used to go to Amazon, who are now using, a chat engine called Anthropic and various other ones. And they can provide answers using those engines. Now, the next thing we'll do is create a question to summarize information that we've already been provided with by ChatGPT. We're not going to use the vector database here. What we're going to do is go up the conversation, as you can see, and then we're going to select different responses that we want to be an input to our next question. So we've now selected all the responses and we've asked a question, and now we can submit it into ChatGPT version 4. So we're just speeding this up a bit. It's not as quick as that in real life, but we just fast forwarded the video. Now what you can see is the future of training and inference for processors, and it's provided quite a good response. I mean, it has, I believe, started to include information that's not quite as targeted as what we would have liked. I think that this sort of shows that perhaps somebody handcrafting the information from the previous answers would probably come out with a slightly better report, because it is starting to become wee bit more generic, which is what we don't like. But what I'll do is I'll save all of this information below the post so that you can have a read through, and if you're interested in this topic, you'll be able to find out more. This information was, correct as of November 2023, although we did use a NVIDIA earnings call from back in July because the new one isn't available yet, but all the others are new. Now what happens is it didn't really bring up information about Amazon, Trainium and Inference, so what I've decided to do is just to do a further question and submit that. And what this will allow us to do is just get that information. So you'll see it's brought back the results pretty fast, but interestingly, it didn't just bring back Amazon, it brought back all the others about Trainium and Inference. So still a very useful answer, but it's not really following orders. I mean, I think that the speed of GPT version 4 can be quite slow using the OpenAI API. I sped it up in this video for you, so you can't quite see just how slow it was coming back with the answer. However, you can host this sort of application on Azure, which is the Microsoft cloud platform, and it actually has direct linkage, into the OpenAI chat bot services. So therefore, I would expect that you would get far improved performance if you're using it on Azure, and you'd be very disappointed if you didn't get any good speed up of of processing. So as I said, I'll copy and paste all of this information, and I think that's really gives a good overview of how this sort of technology can be used. But there's also other ways it can be used as well, and that's just for general analysis work. I mean, if you imagine that you've got all the previous documentation related to a topic, as well as all the email chains, as well as perhaps even the transcripts of any meetings that you've been in, well, it doesn't take much to see the future where all that information can be used and in order to produce further analysis work, in order to complete projects. I think it is going to change a lot for knowledge workers, not all for the best, but I do think that you should be aware of it, and you should be utilizing it where you can. It's just like computers, changed the way that we worked. This will too, and there's nothing much you can do to stop it, unfortunately. But you can seize the opportunity that it provides, and using it does provide quite a bit of joy and interest, in order to do your own analysis. So thanks for listening, and if you've got any analysis that you need done for potential uses of AI within your company, we can provide business analysis work to make sure that the requirements are documented and that what is provided at the end of the project meets your expectations. So thanks for joining, and bye.